Brian, I think we talked about him within the last month. I forget. I'm not really sure, but I remember Phillip Bell. I remember Mission Viejo High School being something we talked about here on the show. And it was just more, hey, this Bell kid, he's good. He's committing soon. What can we learn about him? But now it's down to the Buckeyes and the Trojans. The in-state kid, will he go to USC or will he go to Ohio State? Brian Harlan has a great track record. But if I'm a wide receiver and I see what Lincoln Riley does with quarterbacks, Brian, it wouldn't shock me if he stayed and played for USC.
That makes sense. The only thing about that, I read something a little bit ago that he's supposed to announce his decision around the same time that Ohio State's playing.
Oh, okay. Done deal.
I mean, it could be a coincidence.
Yeah.
I'll go with Ohio State on that. I'll read the tea leaves how I see fit. But he plays at a program that's been dominant for decades. He's a little more solid in terms of his fundamentals than most kids, and I'm being conservative. He's pretty well coached.
Yeah.
Mission Viejo has always had good coaching, and he's a guy that kind of fits what they do. He's a route runner. I think I'm not saying he's Chris Olave because he was about as good a freshman route runner as I've seen.
Right.
But it is ironic they're both from California. So, look, this is a guy that's a little underrated, especially being from Mission Viejo. It's on the south edge of LA for those that are wondering.
Okay.
Why he's not ranked higher, I'm surprised. I went and watched some of his senior film. He's played in a couple games so far. I'm like, he's just naturally gifted at beating guys with his footwork. If you do that and you have the hands that he does, well, then what are we looking at? Because he can definitely run. That's not in question either.
No.
So fade balls inside, you can run screens, doesn't matter what it is. His route tree is much more advanced than most guys. Would not be surprised if he pushed for playing time by his sophomore year in Ohio State.
So you mentioned something with him beating guys with his feet. And I went back and tried to just refresh my memory on him as a route runner. I saw the same thing. And it wasn't something I saw first clip or second clip. I went back to the beginning because I noticed these guys, it's not even bump and run. It's with his feet. He's beating off the line of scrimmage, getting over top of the corner or the DB, and they can't catch up. So I went back earlier in that same little huddle clip film that I was watching. Every single time, doesn't matter what team he's going up against, he's beating you off the line of scrimmage. And if you're doing that in high school, you're going to make big plays if you're a good route runner like he is, if you have the hands he has. But also, that stuff is kind of hard to teach. That, I think, is one thing that might translate to the next level. Of course, you got to refine it, and you got to improve upon it. But he already has a good foundation to build upon as far as his footwork and beating guys at the snap of the ball.
That first step in football, whether you're a D lineman, a receiver, or anywhere in between, is paramount. He maximizes his. He doesn't take false steps like other kids do, at least not as many. And he makes sudden cuts with explosiveness when he changes direction. If you add those combinations together, it's going to work out for you. I mean, you really got to try hard to fail at that point. And his stop and go speed, like he ran a go ball and scored, but then it was a little later, he ran a fade ball and he got the guy on skates. Once they start rock, it's over. It's over. And he also plays with Luke Fahey, a kid who's a Ohio State fan, by the way, but 2026 quarterback that's a big-time player. So that helps too. But that offense is nasty, and he's going to be more prepared for an Ohio State or USC because he's not going to be just like a learning from scratch. There are a lot of kids come to college at receiver, like even as good as Hartline and Ohio State are, it's going to take a while.
Right.
That's not going to be the case with Phillip Bell.
Does Mission Viejo play a national schedule like IMG? I'm not really familiar with the school.
Their first game was in Hawaii.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, that's a program, the Diablos, I believe is their nickname. They've had kids. Like, that's a program that Pete Carroll ardently recruited when he was at SC.
Okay.
I mean, every year they got somebody. And they got 2 juniors that are national recruits, and they got this kid, and they might have some other guys on defense. I don't know. I haven't followed their defense, but they're going to have a Power 4 kid every year.
That's really impressive. That's really impressive out there. And I think when you mentioned Olave earlier, Ryan Day already has somewhat of an understanding about what kind of kids that might be under the radar in California that might be able to play at Ohio State. So it doesn't shock me that when you mentioned his route running being a little bit more advanced and you mentioned Olave was not really on Ohio State's radar at the time. I think Ohio State went out there to look at him. They saw Olave. Ryan Day went hard after him. He ended up committing to Ohio State. The rest is history. Bell, I'm not saying he's going to be Olave, But if you have that route running along with the footwork, he's fun to watch. I don't normally get into watching guys. I'm like, man, you're just that much fun to watch. But Bell is that kind of guy. And I wonder if Ryan Day can continue, just like we talk about him in Alabama, if Ryan Day can continue making somewhat of a mark in California, getting one guy or two guys a year.
It changes everything. You're not trying to really be anything unique if you're Ohio State because you're unique naturally. Like you don't have to go outside. They can get a kid from anywhere at any time. The kid we're going to talk about here in a little bit is from South Florida. We talk about Olave from California. St. Clair's from Ohio. They get kids from everywhere, and it's every year. But specifically, California kids, a lot of the programs out there, they're pretty advanced with some of their technical stuff, like Olave obviously was.
Yes.
He's one of my favorite freshman receivers I've ever seen. If you can just add one more guy a year out there, that might be the difference between beating Michigan or going home with an L. Those games are close. You're recruiting those kids for the Michigan game, for the Big Ten title game, for playoff games. You're trying to win those extra battles. Like they didn't get Jeremiah Smith and he went to Miami. Would they be where they are in the rankings right now?
No.
I mean, it's rare freshmen like him, but he's about as rare as it gets. There's no doubt in my mind that he's changed the polls, and I think he'll continue to do so. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for that extra edge out there. In California, now that they got their two main schools in LA that are in the Big Ten, it's even easier, I would think, because mom and dad's going to see their kids a little bit more if they leave. So Ohio State has to hit that. They got to hit it every chance they can.